In the rugged wilderness bordering the small mountain town of Cedar Falls, Montana, where the line between civilization and wild nature blurred like morning mist, wildlife photographer Marcus Rivera thought he had documented every possible interaction between domestic and wild animals during his 20-year career, but nothing could have prepared him for the extraordinary friendship he would discover in the remote forest that autumn, a bond so unlikely and beautiful that it would challenge everything scientists believed about territorial boundaries, species, compatibility, and the universal need for companionship that transcends every biological barrier. What started as a routine assignment to photograph migrating wildlife would lead Marcus to witness one of the most touching relationships in the animal kingdom: a homeless street dog who had found his way into the wilderness and a young lynx who should have seen him as either threat or prey. Their impossible friendship would flourish in ways that amazed everyone who learned their story, creating a bond so pure and strong that when fate intervened with a heartbreaking twist, their love for each other would prove that some connections are powerful enough to overcome even the most devastating circumstances. Marcus Rivera adjusted his telephoto lens as the early morning mist began to lift from the dense pine forest that stretched endlessly beyond the outskirts of Cedar Falls, Montana. At 45 years old, Marcus had spent 2 decades capturing the secret lives of wildlife. But this assignment for National Geographic felt particularly significant, documenting how climate change was affecting animal migration patterns in the northern Rockies as he settled into his carefully concealed observation blind. Marcus heard sounds that immediately caught his attention: the distinctive bark of a domestic dog, echoing through the wilderness where no domestic animal should be. His first thought was concern: a lost pet in this remote area would likely not survive long with the approaching winter and the presence of mountain lions, bears, and wolves that called this forest home. Through his viewfinder, Marcus spotted the source of the barking: a medium-sized mixed-breed dog with golden brown fur and intelligent dark eyes, clearly a stray who had somehow made his way deep into the wilderness. The dog appeared healthy but wary, moving through the forest with the careful alertness of an animal who had learned to survive on his own. "What are you doing out here, boy?" Marcus whispered, beginning to document the unusual sight of a domestic dog living wild in territory that should have been far too dangerous for an animal without pack protection. But as Marcus continued observing, he realized the dog wasn't alone. Moving parallel to the dog, maintaining a distance of roughly 20 feet, was a young lynx, a magnificent wildcat with the distinctive tufted ears and spotted coat that marked him as one of the forest's most elusive predators. Marcus held his breath as he watched the unlikely pair move through the forest together. The lynx, whom Marcus estimated to be roughly 2 years old, showed none of the territorial aggression or predatory interest that would normally characterize his reaction to a domestic dog. Instead, his body language suggested something that seemed impossible: companionship. "This can't be real," Marcus murmured into his recording device, documenting what appeared to be a deliberate partnership between natural enemies. Lynx are solitary predators. They don't form friendships with domestic animals. The dog, seemingly oblivious to the scientific impossibility of his situation, moved through the forest with obvious comfort and confidence. When he stopped to investigate, interesting sense, the lynx would pause as well, maintaining his parallel course, but clearly coordinating his movements with his unlikely companion. Marcus spent the next 6 hours documenting their interactions, capturing behavior that challenged fundamental assumptions about predator-prey relationships and interspecies compatibility. The dog and lynx had clearly established routines and communication patterns that suggested a long-term relationship rather than a chance encounter. When the dog found a stream and stopped to drink, the lynx approached the water from a different angle, maintaining enough distance to respect the dog's space while clearly participating in the same activity. When the lynx suddenly froze in alert posture at the sound of something moving in the underbrush, the dog immediately adopted the same watchful stance, demonstrating learned behavior that suggested mutual protection. They're hunting together, Marcus realized as he watched the dog flush small game toward an area where the lynx was positioned, not just coexisting, actually cooperating. As the day progressed, Marcus documented feeding behavior that revealed the depth of their unusual partnership. When the lynx successfully caught a rabbit, he shared portions of his kill with the dog, behavior that was unprecedented in Marcus's experience with wild predators. "I'm witnessing something that shouldn't exist according to everything we know about animal behavior," Marcus recorded in his field notes. "These two have formed a genuine friendship that benefits both animals and challenges our understanding of species boundaries." As the evening approached and the unlikely pair settled down to rest in a sheltered area beneath a large pine tree, Marcus knew he had discovered something extraordinary that would require extensive documentation to be believed by the scientific community. Dr. Amanda Foster, leading expert in carnivore behavior at Montana State University, arrived at Marcus Rivera's field station 3 days after his initial discovery, bringing with her 25 years of experience studying predator relationships and a healthy skepticism about Marcus's extraordinary claims. As one of the foremost authorities on lynx behavior in North America, Amanda had never documented anything resembling the friendship Marcus described. Lynx are apex predators with highly territorial behavior, Amanda explained as Marcus prepared to show her the extensive footage he had captured. They don't form social bonds with other species, especially not with domestic animals that would typically be viewed as either competitors or prey. But as Amanda reviewed Marcus's video documentation, her scientific certainty began to crumble. The behavior patterns she observed challenged every principle of predator psychology she had studied throughout her career. The lynx's body language, vocalizations, and territorial responses were unlike anything in the existing literature on wildcat behavior. "This is unprecedented," Amanda admitted after hours of analyzing the footage. "The lynx is exhibiting social behaviors that we typically only see between mated pairs or parent-offspring relationships. But he's directing these behaviors toward a completely different species." Marcus had given the unlikely partners names based on their behavior. Ranger for the dog, whose alertness and protective instincts suggested military or police training in his past, and Scout for the lynx, whose exceptional tracking abilities had proven invaluable to their partnership. Through continued observation, Amanda and Marcus pieced together the remarkable story of how this impossible friendship had formed. Evidence suggested that Ranger had been living in the wilderness for several months, possibly abandoned by owners who could no longer care for him. Survival skills and cautious behavior indicated he had learned to avoid the larger predators that posed threats to a domestic dog. Alone in the wild, Scout appeared to be a young male lynx who had recently been forced to establish his own territory after reaching sexual maturity. His willingness to share space and resources with rangers suggested that the dog's presence provided benefits that outweighed the typical lynx preference for solitary living. Ranger offers Scout advantages that no other lynx could provide, Amanda observed as she documented their hunting strategies. The dog's superior sense of smell and his ability to flush ground prey complement Scout's climbing abilities and ambush techniques. They've created a more effective hunting partnership than either could achieve alone. But the most remarkable aspect of their relationship was the emotional bond that had developed between the unlikely friends. Amanda documented grooming behaviors, play sessions, and comfort-seeking that indicated genuine affection rather than simple cooperation for survival purposes. "Scout is treating Ranger like a littermate," Amanda noted as she watched the lynx groom the dog's ears with obvious care and attention. "These are social bonding behaviors that we typically only see between lynx raised together from birth." Partnership had also created unique adaptations in both animals. Ranger had learned to navigate forest terrain with the stealth and caution of a wild predator, while Scout had developed tolerance for close contact and shared resources that contradicted typical lynx territorial behavior. "They're teaching each other," Marcus realized, as he documented Ranger learning to climb fallen logs by mimicking Scout's techniques. "This isn't just friendship. It's mutual education that's making both animals more adaptable and successful in this environment." As winter approached, Amanda and Marcus faced the reality that their research had revealed something unprecedented in animal behavior studies. The friendship between Ranger and Scout was rewriting scientific understanding of predator psychology and challenging assumptions about the flexibility of animal social structures. But neither researcher was prepared for the heartbreaking challenge that winter would bring to test the strength of this extraordinary bond. Winter's arrival in the Montana wilderness brought challenges that tested the remarkable friendship between Ranger and Scout in ways that neither animal had anticipated. The brutal cold diminished prey, and increased competition from other predators created survival pressures that would strain even the strongest bonds between wild animals. Marcus and Dr. Foster had established a winter monitoring station to continue, documenting the unlikely partnership through the harsh months when survival became the primary focus for all forest wildlife. What they observed during those first weeks of snow and freezing temperatures revealed new depths of loyalty and cooperation that amazed even experienced animal behaviorists. Their partnership is becoming more sophisticated as conditions get harder, Dr. Foster noted as she watched Ranger and Scout coordinate their hunting efforts with increasing precision. They're not just sharing resources, they're actively strategizing to overcome winter challenges. The deep snow that made hunting difficult for both animals led to innovative cooperation that neither species typically displayed. Ranger's ability to break trail through deep snow allowed Scout to conserve energy for the precise movements required for successful ambush hunting. In return, Scout's superior cold tolerance and winter camouflage provided protection and hunting opportunities that Ranger couldn't achieve on his own. But the most touching aspect of their winter survival was the way they shared body heat and shelter. Marcus documented remarkable footage of the dog and lynx sleeping together in a sheltered den beneath a large fallen tree. Their bodies intertwined in a way that maximized warmth while providing mutual comfort during the harsh nights. When temperatures dropped well below zero, this level of physical intimacy is unprecedented between these species, Dr. Foster observed. Scout is allowing Ranger to share his winter den, which goes against every territorial instinct lynx possess. Faced its greatest test when a severe blizzard struck the region, bringing 3 days of continuous snow and winds that made hunting impossible. Marcus and Dr. Foster watched through their remote cameras as Ranger and Scout huddled together in their den, sharing their dwindling energy reserves and taking turns venturing out to search for any available food. The crisis revealed the true depth of their bond when Scout, weakened by hunger and cold, collapsed during an unsuccessful hunting attempt. Ranger's response was immediate and remarkable. The dog began bringing his friends small amounts of food and water, sharing his own limited resources to help Scout recover his strength. Ranger is sacrificing his own nutritional needs to care for Scout, Dr. Foster documented with amazement. This is altruistic behavior that we rarely see even between animals of the same species. But Scout's recovery was slow, and as the storm continued, both animals grew weaker. The researchers faced an agonizing decision about whether to intervene to save the animals they had grown to care about, or to respect the natural processes that governed life and death in the wilderness. The decision was made for them when Scout's condition deteriorated rapidly. Despite Ranger's devoted care, the young lynx was succumbing to a combination of malnutrition, exhaustion, and exposure that threatened his life. His breathing became labored, his body temperature dropped dangerously, and he showed signs of the organ failure that often preceded death in severely stressed wild animals. Ranger seemed to understand that his friend was dying. The dog's behavior shifted from hopeful caregiving to what could only be described as vigil keeping. He positioned himself so that Scout could feel his warmth and presence, providing comfort during what appeared to be the lynx's final hours. We're watching one of the most touching displays of interspecies loyalty ever documented, Marcus recorded as he prepared to capture what might be the heartbreaking end of the most remarkable animal friendship he had ever witnessed. The storm showed no signs of ending, and both researchers knew that Scout's chances of survival were diminishing with each passing hour. The decision to intervene in Scout's medical crisis came when Dr. Foster could no longer bear to watch the young lynx suffer while Ranger maintained his desperate vigil. Despite the strict protocols that governed wildlife research and the importance of allowing natural processes to occur without human interference, the emotional bond that had developed between the researchers and the unlikely animal friends made intervention inevitable. You can't just document his death, Dr. Foster told Marcus as they prepared emergency veterinary supplies. This friendship has taught us too much about animal consciousness and emotion to let it end this way. The rescue operation required careful planning to avoid causing additional stress to both animals. Ranger's protective instincts had intensified. As Scout's condition worsened, and the dog showed obvious wariness toward the approaching humans. But Marcus's weeks of patient observation had taught him to read Ranger's body language, and he approached in a way that communicated help rather than threat. "Easy, boy," Marcus said softly as he knelt near the den where Scout lay motionless. "We're here to help your friend." Ranger's response was remarkable. Instead of defending his territory or fleeing from human contact, the dog seemed to understand that the researchers represented Scout's only chance for survival. He moved aside to allow Dr. Foster access to the dying lynx, while maintaining a protective position that allowed him to monitor every aspect of the medical intervention. Scout's condition was critical. Severe dehydration, hypothermia, and malnutrition had brought him to the edge of death. And Dr. Foster's field examination revealed complications that would require immediate and intensive care to reverse. The lynx was unconscious and showed minimal response to stimuli, indicating that organ failure had already begun. "He needs more medical support than we can provide in the field," Dr. Foster concluded after stabilizing Scout's vital signs as much as possible with her emergency equipment. "We need to transport him to the Wildlife Rehabilitation Center if he's going to have any chance of survival." The transport process presented an unprecedented challenge: how to move a critically ill wild lynx without separating him from the dog whose companionship had become essential to his psychological well-being. Ranger's distress was obvious as the researchers prepared to move Scout, and his attempts to follow the transport carrier suggested that separation would cause additional trauma for both animals. "Ranger needs to come with us," Marcus realized, as he watched the dog's anxiety escalate. Their bond is so strong that separating them now could compromise Scout's recovery, even if we save his life. Dr. Foster made the decision to transport both animals together, creating an unprecedented situation at the Wildlife Recovery Center, where a domestic dog would be housed alongside a wild lynx receiving intensive medical care. The facility's director, Dr. Sarah Kim, agreed to the unusual arrangement after reviewing the documentation of the animals' extraordinary friendship. "If their relationship is as strong as your research suggests, then Ranger's presence could actually aid Scout's recovery," Dr. Kim explained as they prepared specialized housing that would accommodate both animals while providing the medical access Scout needed. The first 48 hours at the rehabilitation center were critical. Scout remained unconscious while receiving 4 fluids, nutritional support, and medications to address the organ stress that threatened his life. Throughout this period, Ranger maintained a constant vigil beside Scout's recovery enclosure, refusing food and showing obvious distress whenever veterinary procedures required temporary separation. "Ranger is exhibiting grief behaviors," Dr. Foster observed as she documented the dog's responses to Scout's critical condition. "He understands how seriously ill his friend is, and he's choosing to stay close rather than seeking comfort or food." For himself, the question facing the medical team was whether Scout would recover enough to resume his life in the wild. And if so, whether the bond with Ranger could survive the trauma of medical intervention and temporary captivity. Scout's recovery was nothing short of miraculous, aided by both medical intervention and Ranger's unwavering presence beside his friend's recovery enclosure. After 5 days of intensive care, the young lynx opened his eyes and showed recognition of his canine companion, a moment that brought tears to the eyes of every staff member who had been following their story. The improvement in Scout's vital signs when he sees Ranger is dramatic. Dr. Kim documented as she observed the reunion. His heart rate stabilizes, his stress hormones decrease, and his appetite returns. This dog is literally healing medicine. For this lynx, Scout's strength returned, the remarkable friendship resumed within the confines of the rehabilitation facility. Staff created a shared enclosure that allowed both animals to interact while providing the medical monitoring. Scout still required their play sessions, grooming behaviors, and sleeping arrangements continued exactly as they had in the wild, proving that their bond had survived the trauma of near-death and medical intervention. They're teaching us things about animal emotion and friendship that we never understood before, Dr. Foster told the documentary crew that had come to film their story. This relationship challenges everything we thought we knew about species boundaries and social structures in the animal kingdom. After 3 weeks of recovery, Scout was medically cleared for release back to the wild. But the question that haunted everyone involved was whether the friendship could survive in an environment that would eventually require them to separate. As Scout's territorial instincts matured, and Ranger faced the reality that he wasn't truly a wild animal. The solution came from an unexpected source: the Cedar Falls Animal Sanctuary, a facility that provided permanent homes for animals who couldn't be returned to their original environments. The sanctuary's director, Emma Rodriguez, offered to create a unique habitat that would allow both animals to live in a semi-wild environment where their friendship could continue without the life-threatening challenges of true wilderness survival. We can provide them with territory that's large enough to satisfy Scout's need for space while ensuring Ranger has the human contact and care that a domestic animal requires. Emma explained as she showed the team the 20-acre woodland enclosure that would become the friends' new home. The transition to sanctuary life revealed new dimensions of Scout and Ranger's relationship, free from survival pressures. Their friendship evolved into something even more touching: a daily routine of exploration, play, and companionship that demonstrated the pure joy they found in each other's company. Visitors to the sanctuary were amazed by the sight of a lynx and dog sharing meals, sleeping together in the sun, and engaging in chase games that showcased both animals' unique abilities. Children especially were moved by the evidence that friendship could transcend any boundary when hearts connected authentically.
Ow.
They're ambassadors for the idea that love doesn't require similarity. Emma observed as she watched groups of schoolchildren learn about wildlife conservation through Scout and Ranger's story. These two have shown thousands of people that acceptance and friendship are choices we can make regardless of our differences. The heartbreaking aspect of their story wasn't tragedy or loss, it was the poignant beauty of watching two beings from different worlds create a bond so strong that it reshaped everyone's understanding of what was possible. Their friendship became a symbol of hope in a world often divided by differences that seemed insurmountable. 5 years after Marcus first discovered them in the Montana wilderness, Scout and Ranger continued to thrive at the sanctuary, their daily routines a testament to the power of love to overcome any obstacle. Their story has inspired wildlife conservation efforts, it's changed animal rehabilitation protocols, and touched the hearts of millions who have learned that sometimes the most beautiful relationships are the ones that shouldn't exist. According to conventional wisdom, the heartbreaking truth wasn't that their friendship ended, was that it was so beautiful it made everyone who witnessed it weep with joy at the proof that love truly has no boundaries. What began as an impossible sight in the Montana wilderness, a street dog and a wild lynx living as companions, became one of the most heartwarming stories of friendship ever documented. The bond between Ranger and Scout didn't end in tragedy, as many feared, but rather evolved into something so beautiful and pure that it moved everyone who witnessed it to tears of joy rather than sorrow. Their story proved that the most heartbreaking moments in life aren't always about loss. Sometimes they're about witnessing love so profound and unexpected that it challenges everything we thought we knew about the boundaries between different worlds. The sight of these two unlikely friends choosing each other despite every biological reason they should be enemies touched hearts around the globe. Today, Ranger and Scout continue to live together at Cedar Falls Animal Sanctuary, where their daily interactions serve as living proof that friendship can transcend any barrier when hearts connect authentically. Their bond has inspired countless visitors, influenced wildlife conservation policies, and created new approaches to animal rehabilitation that honor the emotional needs of wild creatures. The heartbreaking beauty of their relationship lies not in separation or tragedy, but in the overwhelming evidence that love, loyalty, and companionship are universal needs that connect all living beings. Scout's near-death experience and miraculous recovery, aided by Ranger's devoted care, demonstrated that the healing power of friendship can literally save lives. Ranger's transformation from a homeless street dog to the devoted friend of a wild lynx shows us that family isn't defined by species or origin, but by the choice to care for someone unconditionally. His willingness to sacrifice his own needs to comfort Scout during the Lynx's medical crisis proved that love requires no common language and a common heart. Their story teaches us that the most profound connections often form between the most unlikely partners, and that the strength to overcome any challenge can be found when two beings decide to face the world together. In a time when differences often divide us, Scout and Ranger remind us that acceptance, loyalty, and unconditional love can bridge any gap. The tears their story brings aren't tears of sadness, but tears of overwhelming joy at witnessing proof that love truly has no boundaries, and that the most beautiful friendships are often the ones that seem impossible until they bloom before our eyes. If this incredible story of unlikely friendship and the healing power of unconditional love moved you to tears of joy, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell for more amazing stories of bonds that transcend boundaries. Like this video and share it with everyone who believes in the power of friendship to overcome any obstacle. Comment below and tell us about an unlikely friendship that changed your life or restored your faith in the beauty of connection. Your story might inspire our next heartwarming video. Thank you for joining us on this emotional journey, and remember, sometimes the most heartbreaking moments are the ones that break our hearts open to let more love in.